Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Gwanzura, and I have the distinct pleasure of being your host. On this podcast, every single Wednesday, we talk about career wellness. We talk about our faith journeys and explore the intersection of that and how it affects our personal and professional lives. Who am I? I am a mama. I am a career wellness consultant. I am someone who's really passionate about women's ministry. And in general, I just love being able to share my expertise with you all about what career development means from the lens of your mental well-being, your career development, and financial literacy. And one of the ways we do that week after week is either I'm chatting with you solo about a conversation that's come up in the comments, something that's going on in the media, or just in the environment around us. And then other weeks, I have amazing guests that are going to talk to you about their stories. And I always think about the reasons why I also bring guests, because one, I'm a little curious, actually very curious. I want to know the reason behind why people do what they do. Think of when you go on social media, right? And you see somebody and you're like, oh, they must be X, Y, and Z. You've immediately made assumptions about who that person is and how they must have had life handed to them on a silver platter with a silver spoon. But I want to demystify some of that. And the second reason why I bring on guests is because I want you to also reflect on your experience, your life to date, and see, well, what is that thing in that person's journey that I can resonate with? What is that thing in that person's journey that, maybe I can shift something, I can pick up a lesson or two? Or how cool is it that that person was super non-traditional? So my career doesn't have to be non-traditional. So what transferable skills can I use now that I feel empowered through that? And three, my promise to you with every guest that I bring is that everyone that comes is fully vetted, y'all. There's no one that comes on the show that I have not personally connected with, networked with, and know that behind them is a pure intent, is an authentic intent, so that when they get off of this podcast and you connect with them in their zones of geniuses, in their world of work, you're not going to get a different person. They're not going to act brand new on you. And that is my promise to you with every guest that comes on the show. And today I am so honored because my guest today is the Seneca Dunmore. She is the founder. She is probably my favorite title, the Kingdom Financier at Dunmore Capital Ventures. And Seneca is just so incredible and authentic in her work, an incredible leader, so much so that with Dunmore Capital Ventures, her and her team have helped clients secure, to date, $6 million in funding. $6 million, y'all, with this woman. You may have heard of her too as a pint-sized powerhouse. She truly is a powerhouse in everything that she does. She has traveled to over 45 countries across 5 continents. So when you are talking, when you hear from Seneca, keep in mind that the work that she does, the things that she says, comes from such an authentic place, a well-rounded place, a well-traveled place, and let's not mistake it, a well-educated space. So I am so excited to welcome Seneca Dunmore to the show. Seneca, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate such a beautiful introduction. Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you are here. I know we have so many conversations offline, on chats, on texts. And I'll tell y'all, when Seneca and I met, I reached out to her. I saw her on LinkedIn and she was doing some really cool things. And she was teaching this course about how to get visibility on LinkedIn, and I'd seen the proof in the pudding in how she connects and how she interacts on LinkedIn, and I was like, I need to connect with this woman. She is amazing. She was also very open about her faith, and there was just this authenticity that I loved. And when I reached out to her, it was the same energy on the other side. Same energy. She gave me courage to speak to folks in voice notes and video notes. And I don't even know how long it's been now, at least a year, maybe more now, that we have
Yeah.
continued to stay connected in business, in faith, in just personal life. So I am so grateful that you are now a part of the Wellness with EAC community.
Yes.
Tell us more about you.
Yeah, so born and raised in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And I grew up, if you know anything about Houston, right? I grew up in a neighborhood called Sunnyside. And when I was living in Sunnyside, Sunnyside was considered the sixth most dangerous neighborhood in America. I think
Mm,
it's number one in terms of the most dangerous neighborhood in Houston.
mm,
And so when I tell people that, they're always surprised because they see all of my credentials and the education and all the places that I've been. They would never assume that I came from a place like that. And so what I tell people is that, Sunnyside was not a bad neighborhood. Sunnyside was an economically disenfranchised community, right? Very
mm,
different. The crime, the violence, the poverty, all of that we were seeing in our neighborhood was not a result of bad people. It was just a
mhm,
result of people in survival mode, right?
mm,
And, trying to get the resources that they needed. And so when I started my Dunmore Capital Ventures, it was kind of based off of those premises. We started Dunmore Capital Ventures in 2022 during the pandemic. You had the great resignation happening where so many people of color were leaving corporate spaces and now wanting to try their hand at entrepreneurship. But of course,
mhm.
everybody was running into the same issue, which was a lack of capital. We know that
Yes.
Black women alone are the most educated demographic in the United States. We're also the most founded demographic, but we're the least funded, which makes no sense, right? Because if you think about it, it's like, if let's just say, I'm a poker player, right? And I'm
Mhm,
hedging my bets. I want to make sure that I'm hedging my bets on where I know I'm going to get the best return on my investment, where I know I'm going to win. And if we're looking at the statistics, it means that you probably want to place your money with Black women because they seem to be leading the pack. And so that's kind of what I do day in and day out, helping,
mm,
enterprising small business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate professionals, get access to the capital that they need to really grow and scale their businesses. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that I have to remind business owners, especially in communities of color, is that you have a civic, a moral, and a fiduciary responsibility to make money in your business. One of,
mm.
there's a Bible verse that I came across recently, and it talks about, Jesus says, do business till I come. And most people forget about that. Like, God expects us to use those gifts and those
Mhm.
talents and those resources that He's given us to do business and to multiply, right?
Yes.
Multiply the gift, multiply the resources. Because again, the more that I have, the more that I have to give.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what
Yes.
keeps me busy day in and day out, working
Oh,
with investors and partnering them with enterprising small business owners who just need a little bit of a push, need a little bit of capital to get their businesses going and to really grow them and sustain them and scale them.
I love that. I love that. And it's so important. And I
Yeah.
think knowing the difference between going back to what you said and just like knowing the difference between just simply labeling a neighborhood as bad,
Yeah,
simply labeling it applies to everything that we do. Just simply
absolutely.
labeling people without understanding, without knowing, without leveling. It's such an, you know, a way to just remove the equity from things,
Yeah.
because how are we making equitable decisions when we're just labeling things
Yeah. And I
instead
always
of
tell people
solving it? Yeah.
exactly. When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Right at the base level, you have physiological needs. And then at the
Yes.
very top, you have self-actualization, where you
Mm-hmm.
can't talk to somebody about self-actualization who's just simply trying to feed themselves,
That's
who,
true.
they don't know where their next hot meal is coming from. They don't know if they're going to be evicted from their home today. So the thing was, one of the things that I love about Jesus is that anytime he came into a space, a community, where he was healing or whatever the case may be, he
Mm,
always took care of those physiological needs first.
yes.
Because
Yes.
he can't talk to them about the kingdom and about the good news if they're hungry,
Yes.
if they can't take care of themselves. So he always addressed the physical needs, those physiological needs first before he discussed, getting to self-actualization and healing and all of those things. And so that's what we have to remember is that anytime we're going into a space, a community to serve and to help, individuals who we deem are less than or whatever the case may be, we've got to first
Hmm.
think about those immediate needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, those are immediate and basic needs when we think of just the core needs that folks have. I work with a lot of college students, and when I'm on campus and delivering career wellness workshops, we're,
Yeah.
sometimes I remember a program and the students will come to me right after lunch. So I know they've been fed, but maybe they didn't like the meal that day, or maybe there just was, they needed a little extra something. And honestly,
Yeah.
the itis is just real after you're
Oh,
coming to sit in a
absolutely.
class after something. So I tried to make sure that where I could just like grab extra bit of snacks, a little bit of candy, like something, just to like give
Absolutely.
you just a little bit of something that will help. Because if your mind is not settled, you're thinking about, I need a little extra something. I didn't
Right.
get enough of something. And it's a basic need, then anything else we're doing, honestly, doesn't matter as much because we're not coming to meet folks at the need that they're at. And I love that you use Jesus because, he fed people all the time, like you said. And I always will think of, what he did with the loaves of bread and the
Yeah.
fish and fed the 5,000. So even from there may be people maybe who heard the word and decided to follow him, but then there are also people maybe who just came and said, I got my meal today. I got what I needed
Absolutely.
today and went home. So he
Absolutely.
still served them. It wasn't necessarily that day about having them follow him, but he was still able to serve them. And that's what we need to be doing in our communities, and why I love seeing the work that you do for small businesses. And I think you have the superpower of you are at this intersection of you find people, I don't even know, it is like a God-given gift of how you find these people that are passionate about supporting small
Mhm.
businesses. And it's not just small businesses, they're passionate about supporting good business
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
good business people. And you find them and they have the resources beyond what we could even think or access or process. And then you find business owners in the community and you're like, hey, can we come together and have a conversation? But not just that, you're bringing them together in a space where you're going to educate the business owner on how do you approach this correctly so you don't fumble the play.
Exactly.
And you're telling the folks that are funding, okay, let me give you a platform to talk about what you do. And then you bring them together. So I love the work that you do in that. And I'm wondering too, before we even go to the next set of questions, is can you say, I'm a business owner then that is looking at, well, am I even ready to start having those conversations? I need funding.
Mhm.
I need the resources. I'm a very well educated and well supported Black woman at the base of things, or, um, but, and I'm running this business. This is the
Yeah.
gift that I have. It needs to be shared with the world, but how does she know? Right? How does she know that she's ready?
So this is the thing.
Mm,
I think most of us have been so indoctrinated to believe that we've got to wait until the need is there before
yeah.
we ask. And
Mm,
so, believe it or not, when you're dealing with banks, right? I know this sounds like an oxymoron, but I tell people that banks don't like to lend to people who need the money. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't even sound right. Why would I be asking for the money when I don't need it?
yeah.
If you look at how rich people operate, they leverage the bank's money, right? Because they're not taxed on that debt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge tax break for them, right? They leverage other people's money and then they use their capital, they put it into other cash flowing assets and things like that. So while they're, using the bank's money and they're paying a small percentage on that, paying that money back, they're making more money over here with the money that they're using. So I
Mm-hmm.
always have to school people, especially, startups and individuals who are kind of new to business, that start asking for the money before you need it.
Yes.
Because what happens is a lot of times once we need the money, now we're kind of acting in a spirit of desperation, and people can
Yes.
smell that desperation
Oh,
on you.
yeah.
It's kind of like, oh gosh, I really need this, and please, and so you're kind of operating from a position of desperation, and that doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. And people naturally want to give to people who they already see got it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You think about like celebrities, why is it that a lot of these top designers, like they'll give these big celebrities, dresses and jewelry and things like that just for an opportunity to have them wear their things and market it. And it's like, well, Kim Kardashian can clearly pay for this dress,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, why wouldn't you charge her for it? But again, you've got to look for the resources before you even need it.
Mm.
If you are just thinking about starting a business, I would tell individuals, start thinking about like, hey, what family and friends and people in your network who maybe you can do a crowdfund and say, hey guys, listen, I want to start a business. It's going to cost about $10,000 to get, all of my documentation and to build my website and all of these different things, right? Start asking for the money before you even need it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, once your business is running and now you have the paperwork and the collateral and all those different things, yeah, now you're at a different level and now you've got the proof to show that, hey, I can pay this money back. But
Yes.
if you're a small business owner and you're thinking about starting a business, if you're new to business, 1 year in business, whatever the case may be, like, getting funding should be an integral part of your business. It should be an
Mm.
ongoing thing. It shouldn't be you're only asking for the money when you need it. It should be funding should be a baseline, thing in your business.
Yes. Yes. Seneca, that leads me to another question
Sure.
because the next question that comes out of there. What are people going to think? Can you speak to that woman who might be too prideful or too embarrassed? Yet it's an integral part.
Oh gosh. I see this so often. I deal with this so often because we have been so indoctrinated and so socialized to believe that we've got to be strong and we've got to hustle and grind and get it out of the mud. And I say, no, guys, we live in a capitalistic society, which you don't have to get it out of the mud. You can get out of
Hmm.
the market.
Yes.
Right. And I want to show people how to get it out of the market. Business is a team sport. You should be in business for yourself, but you should never be in business by yourself. There's an African proverb that I love that says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself.
So,
But if you want to go far, go together.
yes.
Business was never designed for you to do it by yourself. And especially when you're dealing with investors, the first thing they want to see is your team.
Hmm.
Because if you are the most important chess piece in your business, you don't have a very viable business. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Say
Yes.
like, Nicole, if you wanted to go to South Africa for 60 days, right? You wanted to go on a retreat, you and hubby, take the kids and all of that. If your business is dependent upon you being there 24/7, you're probably not running a very scalable business because it's only you.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
if an investor sees that, oh, Nicole has a great business, she has a team that if she wants to go off for 60 days and do a nice little retreat in South Africa and the business is still running even while she's not there, that's good business. That's a scalable business. That's what investors want to invest in because they know that guess what? If you're not around, the business doesn't collapse.
That's true.
So again, during the pandemic, between February and April alone of 2020, nearly 41% of Black businesses went completely out of business. Number one, because they didn't have enough working capital in their business, so they didn't have any money to sustain them through the pandemic.
Hmm.
And another thing is that over 95% of Black businesses are solopreneurs, meaning
Yes.
they don't hire anybody else.
Yeah.
So guess what? When we have another catastrophe like a COVID-19 that hits, then guess what? They go under because they don't have any help.
Exactly.
And so it behooves you to think about building a team and having other people that can work with you. And of course, the question is, the $1 million question is, well, Seneca, how can I build a team if I can't pay anybody? Right?
Mm.
I totally understand that. I get that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there are some people out there who believe so much in what you're doing and believe in your visions that they will do it for free right now.
Mm-hmm.
you know Reach out to those individuals and be very honest and transparent with them and say, hey, listen, I've got a vision. God has put this in my heart. This is what I want to do. I don't have the money to pay anybody right now, but if you can commit the next 6 months to helping me to grow this business, right? I will give you equity in the business, or after 6 months, if I can't pay you, then all bets are off, whatever the case may be. But just be
Right.
honest and transparent with people up front. Most people don't mind helping you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They don't. They will put in that sweat equity, especially if they see that you're doing something and that you're consistent and that you believe in what you're doing.
That's it.
And you have
That's
that
it.
stick to itiveness and that you stick with it.
That is so powerful and so important because if you don't ask, you're not going to get. And if you're not
It is.
transparent with it as well, then people won't know how to help you. And oftentimes we internalize that and we're like, well, they just don't want to help me. Did you ever
Yeah,
ask? Did you
exactly.
find out what they could? And I have people like that. There's some people that I'm able to invest in certain things. And then there's some folks that are just like, we want to help you. When I was coming up with new language for my website, I knew there were some friends that I could just ask.
Yeah.
Then there's a friend that meets with me once a month just to look at certain things. And there's folks that will play an integral part of the team for seasons at a time. And they're
Right.
just like, we just want to help support you because you're, our friend, because you're someone we really just care about. And
Absolutely.
it's actually been, as of late, something I've had to just chart out again of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not really utilizing all my resources. So and so said, reach out anytime about this. This person said this. Am I following up? Why am I stressing myself out? I need to do this. So I think it was really important that you just share that.
Yeah.
And I hope for whoever's listening, you're taking it to heart.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So Seneca, I'm thinking about just the season of life. You've been doing some really cool things. And every time we're not just gonna speed past the fact that you and your team have helped clients secure $6 million in funding. There's some really, really good work that you are doing. Um, and I'd love to know that in this season, what are you really reflecting on that you're really proud of? Maybe it's that, and I just like took all the bells and whistles from it, but as you're just reflecting on the impact you've been making, what are you really proud of right now?
I'm always proud when I'm helping people, right? Anytime I
Hmm.
can help people to secure the funding that they need to, because it's bigger than just the money, right? What people need is the funding, but what they really want is autonomy, right? Personal autonomy.
Yes.
They want time freedom. They want to be able to spend more time with their friends and loved ones. They want to be able to pay their bills on time and still have enough money to do fun stuff, right? So those are the things
Hmm.
that they really want. They want that freedom, that flexibility, that fulfillment at the end of the day. But also, we've been talking, and this has been such a transitional season, right? Where we've had
Mm.
to make a lot of pivots, and I've had to have a lot of hard conversations with people that I've known for a very long time. And I
Mm.
think, and the thing that I'm most proud of is that I'm sticking to my guns, and I'm allowing people to be who they are and
Mm.
giving them the freedom and the space to explore what that next thing is for them without my interruption.
Ooh.
because sometimes we feel like, oh, but I know if I only did this and I can help them. And it's like sometimes we want more for them than they want for themselves. And so we're kind of interrupting the process. It's kind of like, when a butterfly is coming out of that cocoon, right?
Hmm.
And it's a very stressful and it's a hard process because they're having to use those wings and expand. And while they're doing that, is causing that blood to pump and causing those muscles to expand and contract. And they need that in order to be strong enough that when they get out of that cocoon, they can now fly.
Mm,
If you interrupt that process and you start peeling back the layers of that cocoon, now they don't build the strength to now fly.
mm.
And so I think in this season, God has been moving me, because I think in some cases in my wanting to help, right? In my
Right.
need to help, I've interrupted the process for some other people who
Mm.
needed to kind of build that strength and build that muscle to now get to that next level. And that's a hard lesson to learn, you know.
Yeah.
But again, I'm proud of myself for listening to God and saying, okay, Lord, let me step back because I have a tendency to really kind of bulldoze my way
Mm.
into spaces and I'm very dogmatic about the things that I want. And if I want to be in the room, I'm gonna show up. But in
You're gonna
this
be
season,
there.
yes, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna show up. And
Yeah.
so but yeah, I've had to kind of step back from certain individuals in my life who I love and cherish and respect their friendship. But again, you know, seasons change.
Yes.
And we have to be okay with that. Seasons change.
Yes.
I always give the analogy of the space shuttle, right? So anytime you look at the space shuttle, when it's getting ready to take off, you've got four components of the space shuttle. You've got the orbital, which is the piece that goes into, the atmosphere. You got that big orange piece in the middle, which is the external fuel tank. And then on the very sides, you've got the two solid rocket boosters. Well, what
Mm.
people don't understand is that the only purpose of those two solid rocket boosters is to give it enough momentum to get off the ground and to break the earth atmosphere. Once
Mm.
it's done that job, what do? They fall off. And
Mhm.
so there's certain people in our lives who have been excellent solid rocket boosters, and they've been
Yes.
able to get us from this level to this level. But guess what? They're not equipped to help us to get from this level to this level. And so we've
Yes.
got to be okay with allowing them to fall off so that we can continue the journey. Because guess what? Along that journey, you're going to meet more solid rocket boosters who are going to help you get to the next level. And we've all been
Yes.
solid rocket boosters in someone else's life. And I realize that, there's certain friends that I've been a solid rocket booster, but God has not called me to go to the next level, or God has not called for them to go to the next level with me.
Mhm.
And I've gotta be so okay with that, and I've gotta trust that whatever God is doing in this season, he's doing it not only for my good, but for their good as well.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that part. Seasons expire for a reason.
Oh my God. Oh my God, they do.
They absolutely do. When we think about a year, depending on where you live, honestly, but for the most part, we know when we're learning in science, when we're learning in about just like we're learning in school about the different seasons that we're going to go through winter. And everything is just kind of trees, everything is just covered in cold.
Yeah.
Nothing's really fully growing. There are some things that thrive in that weather,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So those solid rocket boosters for the winter are there. But then when you
absolutely.
come out of that winter season, you are going to also experience the beginning of the summer season. You're gonna experience there's a season where is it that we're gonna grow? Because we go through winter, then we go through fall, then winter, then we go through spring,
Thing.
and
Mhm.
then we go into the summer. So
Right.
in the fall, everything is like falling off the leaves, and
That's right.
it's still a little bit cool. Then we come into the winter, everything is covered and cold. And then we come into the season of like in the spring, things are growing. Things are flourishing, it's raining, it's being watered. In the summer, things operate in a certain way. But you need to know in every single one of those seasons, and I probably disordered them, it's fine. But every single season, there's things that happen that can only happen in that
That
season,
season.
right?
Yeah.
Summer and winter cannot operate together because
Nope.
winter is supposed to make things cold, summer is supposed to make things hot.
That's
And when you
right.
put them together, you just make a messy, watery mess.
That's right. That's
They're
right.
not supposed to be together. They're
That's
like
right.
oil and water.
That's right.
So I really appreciate that example that you're giving of the rocket ship, because there are things that at some point they just need to move and they shift. And I think in business as well, somebody was talking about the example. There's a book about 10xing. I can't remember what the book is called.
Okay.
Um,
Is that
but
the
the
one by
woman was
Grant
just,
Cardone?
yes, yes, that's it. That's it. Yep. So this woman was using this example of like sometimes we are looking at, okay, how do we just 2x our way through business? 2x our way through business. Oh, I'm putting in all this effort. I'm doing all of these things to get to the next level, but you're just taking small steps, small steps, small steps. And then you're trying to figure out, well, why isn't it working?
Uh-huh.
Well, because where you were right there, maybe 2x worked, but it no longer works for you to get to the level that you need
That's
to. You
right.
need to 10x now to get to that next level so that you
Absolutely.
can actually see the difference. Because the reason why you're stuck in the middle is because you're still trying to do the same efforts, but it's doing the opposite. You're 2xing your way into staying where you are
Yeah.
instead of 10xing to get out of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I always
Oh,
tell people like, what got you here will not get you there.
yep.
And so, remember in the pandemic, everybody was a guru, everybody had a coaching program, everybody, and so now that's kind of died off. And it's like what it took to maintain at that level, it takes a whole nother level of effort to get to the next level.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of times we get comfortable and it's like, oh, that was working. And then it's like, oh, but wait, why is this is so hard now? Why is this not working now? Because what got you here won't get you there. It's going to take another level of effort. It's going to take another level of discipline.
Yes.
It's going to take more.
Yeah. Yeah. And life of an entrepreneur, it never fully settles in a steady pace. Your why will always remain the same. That's why it's so
Right.
important. The core of it remains the same, but the how, that can change every 6 months sometimes.
Absolutely. And I feel like with machine learning and artificial intelligence and data analytics and all this new technology, things are changing so much quicker. Like
Yes.
I feel like before, you had about, 2 or 3 years, you could kind of get settled into a rhythm before things change. Now it's like, oh, wait a minute, this worked 6 months ago and now it's not working now.
Yes.
It's like that change
Yes.
is happening so much quicker now.
It is. It is. And I think this is such actually a really great lead in into the next question, because there's times in our journey where we need to reflect,
Yes.
to realize, are we just going in circles? Are we shifting the to get to where we need to go next? And the only way to do that is to stop and pause. So can you share an example of when you were reflecting on something and came to the realization that, like, okay, in this part of my journey I could have done this differently?
Yeah, most definitely. I've had a lot of those moments over the last
Hmm.
couple of years since I've been working Access Granted because again, when I first started Access Granted, it was all about, equipping small business owners and entrepreneurs in historically marginalized and economically disenfranchised communities, right?
Yes.
Not only access to the financial education and the capacity building tools, but of course, the funding resources that they need to grow and scale. And since I've been doing that, I realized like, oh, wait a minute. but I'm bringing in these multi-million-dollar investors and I had a billionaire at my last conference in Dallas, Texas, and I realized that where they are and who I was bringing in, that there was a mismatch.
Mm.
It was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm bringing in people who, are truly not ready for the funding," right? They're needing to learn, they're needing to build their capacity. They're not really a bankable business. They're trying to figure it out. They don't have the things in place. And then I've got the people who are like, "Well, I can cut a check today. I'm ready to cut a check now, but I can't do that because you're not ready." And so
Mm.
that was like throwing cold water in my face because I was just like, "Oh gosh." I felt like, well, I'm doing everybody a huge disservice because I'm bringing these investors in, and I'm pairing them with the wrong people. And so I literally had to go back to the drawing board and say, "Okay, well, I've got to make sure that I'm bringing
Mm.
in the individuals who are ready for the investment." It doesn't mean that I leave behind, the individuals who are not ready. I
Of
just needed
course.
I had to now really go and think outside of the box and say, "Okay, well, what can I offer them in this season that
Mhm.
prepares them and gets them ready to be in the room, be in proximity to the investors?" So it really stretched me. I had to now
Yes.
think about like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, what I did before is not working. And now that I'm growing, it meant that the people that I serve, I had to bring them along with me. And I had to make sure that
Mm.
I was preparing them and positioning them to be in a position where they were more economically stable, more economically, enfranchised." And so yeah, it was different. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely been in a season where I've had to do some things differently. And
Mhm.
I've had to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate, reassess, and make a lot of changes. And
Yeah.
and it came much quicker than I expected. I thought I had time to kind of bask in my accomplishments and, oh, pat myself on the back, and, oh, I've
Yeah.
done a great job. And it was like, oh no, wait, I don't have time to chill. I've got to make some changes now, right? Because things are moving so quickly. So yeah,
Wow.
it's a different season.
Ooh, and that's needed and so necessary. And yeah, sometimes we just don't have that time or flexibility. But also, on the flip side, the only way you know that you have to shift is to run the event over and over and over again. I know people who almost then run their business into the ground because they're doing so much R&D, all that research and development, but they never go out and test it because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid that whoever it is that they're targeting is not going to work
Yeah.
out. And but you're not going to know, right? Because for every 8 to 10 clients, who was I listening to? Like every 8 to 10 clients, or, then you go to the next 20 clients after that, 50 clients after that. But each time you get to a certain milestone, you're going to have to shift how
Yes.
you do things.
Yeah.
And it might mean going back to the drawing board of that business plan. At this point, all business plans should be fluid.
Yeah.
They should be fluid because
Absolutely.
you're going to have to shift a little something. And you're going to have room to pivot. You're going to need to make room to pivot, but the only way you'll know is one, you going out and doing the thing
That's
and
right.
doing it multiple times. It could flop on the first time. It could flop on the first time. Um, it could be a little unsteady the second time. It could be a little sturdier the next time. I always think of toddlers getting ready to walk. It's wobbly.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
wobbly for a second. And they've got
Yeah.
to fall and they default to crawling a little bit. They
Yeah.
fall and default to crawling a little bit. But eventually, they're going to try it enough times that they can walk away from the table and take a step or two. And that's
Absolutely.
exactly what you need to do with your business for you to be able to trial it out. And then once you've done that, then stop and reflect, like what
That's
you're
right.
saying. And you're
Yeah.
having to shift because if you don't reflect, that's where we all get caught up so much. We're just like, oh, it didn't work out. Why? I don't know. Then you might change you might change. Maybe it's not the event anymore. You might change and focus on something else, but
Right.
then you're going to apply the same bad habits and the
Absolutely.
result will be the same.
And the result will be the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is all about building the plane in the air.
It really is so.
That's what
It
it
doesn't
is. It's
even
like
have landing equipment.
we don't even have landing equipment yet. I've got to
Mhm.
keep this thing up, right? And so a lot of times people are so concerned about getting it right. And I tell people, if you don't make the right decision, just make the decision right.
Yes.
If you're in business and you don't make the right decision the first time, just worry about making the decision right? Because
Yes.
again, it's just like driving a car, like you said, when we're shifting gears.
Mhm.
You're going to have to constantly shift gears. And so if you've ever drove a stick shift, right? You get to that 20 miles and then you can feel the car starting to, you know, and now you've got to go into second gear and then you've got to throw it into third gear, right? So that you can keep on accelerating because if you don't switch gears, well, guess what? You burn the clutch. And so a lot of us, we get to a point of burnout and things like that because we haven't shifted those gears. We think, oh, I can just keep on running at this level. I can keep on 2Xing it, not realizing that no, now you're going to need to 10X it. Now you're going to need to
Exactly.
20X it. So yeah, it's and again, it's scary. Yeah, people are, we're always looking for the guarantees, like, oh, I need to make sure that there are no guarantees in life.
0.
There are zero guarantees. And so if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, like if you're looking for guarantees, you're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong business because you sometimes you just got to get out there and fail fast. And guess what? Go back to the drawing board, take some time to regroup, reevaluate, see what worked, what didn't work, come up with another plan and get back out there on the track, right? Like if you
Mm.
could watch those big old, those cars that the speed, the NASCAR and things like that, like they hit those pit stops and they've got like 4 seconds to kind of take off the wheels, put them back on and get right back on out there on the track. And that's what entrepreneurship is. You get these moments where you get to stop, reevaluate, reassess, and then you got to put those wheels back on and you got to get back out there in the game. That's the only way that it works. You got to stay in the game.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You got to stay. If you are in entrepreneurship because of those reasons that you were giving and
Yeah.
that freedom, that time, getting your time back and just being
Yeah.
able to create a legacy, you have to. And so Seneca, we're talking a lot about the things you're doing. You're flying a plane without even landing gear. You got to
Yeah.
stay in the plane. There's a lot of things that you're doing that exert a lot of energy, right? It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not.
So, how are you taking a breath in between? What does wellness mean to you?
It means I used to be the type where I didn't have a yellow light, right? I had a red light and I had a green light, and I would just go, go, go until I hit a wall. And so
Mm,
now I'm learning to listen more to my body. When I get to that point where I'm feeling a little uneasy, like, okay, I need to stop here and rest. I need to just take a break.
mm,
I take those moments, right?
okay.
And it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. If it means that I just take a drive down to the beach for, check into a hotel for 2 or 3 nights to just kind of be alone by myself. If that means, whatever that means for me, right? I
Right.
love being by the water. So I'm always looking for a nice beach, right? I love being by the water. My family and friends really rejuvenate me. Like I have an amazing family. My mom and dad are the best of friends. I can talk with
Mm,
them about anything, right? I can go, like their place is like a sanctuary, right? You just go there and rest. So
mm,
sometimes I just run to my parents, spend a night or two with them. Um,
yeah.
Sometimes it means I might take a quick little day trip to go see a friend somewhere else where it's just like, hey, let's just talk and sip our little chai lattes and throw on our little robes and our little fuzzy slippers and sit in front of this fireplace, whatever the case may be. Like for me, I'm very much an extrovert. So I'm recharged around people versus, introverts are usually need to be alone. I
Yes.
do have some of those moments where for clarity's sake, when I'm like right now, I'm in the middle of a pivot where I need to be in the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Mm,
Like what God needs to download with me, it's not coming from external sources, it's coming from within. And so I need that time to just kind of, block out the world and I need some
yes.
quiet so that he can have my full uninterrupted undivided attention.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So yeah, so
Yes.
it's I always tell people like whenever you get into that point where you feel like you need a break, take it.
Mm.
Take it. And I don't say, because again, we think, especially as women, like we got to be all things to all people. And I have a little bit more freedom and flexibility than most because I don't, I'm not married, I don't have children, so I don't have to worry about cooking dinner for someone, or the babies are
Yeah.
crying and things like I can be like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm tired. I'm going to just take a ride somewhere. And some women just don't have that luxury. They don't have that freedom and flexibility. But I also believe um that as a single woman, like I remember when my sister was having her two children. They're 10 and 12 now, but I remember when they were young, and she had them
Mhm.
back to back. And anytime I sensed that she needed a break or she was a little bit stressed, I would tell her husband, listen, take Jordan for a date, right? Why don't you guys go spend the night in Galveston tonight? I'm going to stay here with the babies. I'm the fun auntie. I'm the one who's I'm going we're going to do all the dance routines, and eat
Yes.
all the desserts and things like that. And I'm like,
Yes.
listen, why don't you just go spend the night somewhere else? Like just be husband and wife for today.
Mhm.
Don't be parents for today. The kids are
Right.
fine. They're with auntie. I've got 8 nieces and 3 nephews. I know how to take care of kids, right? So just
Yes.
so and sometimes I feel like you know, as believers, as servants, as a single woman, it's my responsibility also to help my sisters who are in positions where, they're mothers, they're wives, and they have a lot on their plate and they don't have the freedom or the luxury to just say, "Up, I'm just going to skip out today." If I can
Yes.
step in and say, "Hey girl, listen, I got the kids today. Like you go take,
Mhm.
even if that means you just need a couple of hours to yourself." Like I literally used to have a girlfriend who stayed around the corner from me, and she was a new mother, and the baby was a little colicky, and she would cry. She would call me crying and say, "Seneca, I just want to take a shower.
Mm.
I just want to take a nice hot shower." And I would
Yeah.
come over and I would say, "Listen, why don't you take the day? Like it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't come back until 6 p.m.
Yes.
Go have a nice day to yourself. Go drink a latte, go get your nails done, go get a massage if you want to, or hell, just go sit in your car. If you know what I
Yes.
mean? Sometimes it's like I
Yes.
don't even want all that. I just want some peace and quiet.
No.
Yeah,
Peace and
like
quiet.
I just want some peace and quiet. Some days she wouldn't even leave the house. She would just go in her room and just go to sleep and just,
Yes.
eat a nice hot meal in the bed and just watch TV and just yeah. And I just, hey, that's fine.
That's it.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need
Mm.
that. And so we've gotta, I feel like in this season, we've gotta be a little more discerning because I just got back from Dallas, Texas, and a good friend of mine who had his 40th birthday party, and he was saying how he was in a season where he was really stressed, he was depressed, and he felt like he didn't have anybody to call on. And I
Mm.
felt really bad because this is someone who I hold near and dear as a friend, and I hate that
Mm.
I miss the warning signs.
Yeah.
I was so busy and so caught up with everything that Seneca had going on that I missed that my friend was hurting and that I
Mm.
didn't see it and I couldn't step in. And now that I know, I check on him more frequently and I
Yeah.
do as much as I can. But yeah, sometimes we're so caught up in our own worlds that we miss what's happening in other people's worlds. And
Yeah.
so I just pray that God gives me the discernment to see like when somebody else is hurting and I have the freedom and the capacity to step in and kind of alleviate some of that burden for them that I can do.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's um there's so much merits to that because as someone who's been a new mom twice and suffered loss twice, there's something about your community, right? That's just there to help you understand or to
So
just like be there and say comfort or all those things that you're just like this really matters, right? Or yes, come hold my baby while I shower and like take a nap. And if 1 hour you is all you have, I'll take a 15-minute nap, right? And then I'm going to sleep for 45 minutes, or even I'll sleep for 30 minutes, whatever the quickest is to get the just like a quick bounce back. But it's more than what I would have had before. And the fact that you're a safe enough environment for a friend to call crying, that's not always the case, right? It's not always the case that somebody would feel comfortable to just say, hey, this is what's going on.
Mhm.
Hey, and when they acknowledge it too, then you're able to take action, because there's still some people who heard that message and still went back to doing their own thing.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
said, we'll worry about that later. But I had this conversation with my friend recently, and I was like, hey, I'm just checking on you. And I kept checking in, and I wouldn't hear back. I kept checking in. And then I was like, hey, like, do you have time? Like, and then when we got on the phone, I was like, you just haven't been yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Are
Absolutely.
you okay?
Yeah.
You have not been yourself. And I'd rather you be mad at me and say, leave me alone. You know, you're doing the most. But every time I've reached out to you, this is not like you. We don't
Yeah.
talk often, but when we do, this is not your reaction. And I've known you long enough. And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
other thing that I said to her too at the end, we were just kind of laughing by then. And I was like, I'm glad we spoke, because I never want to hear that something happened to you or happened to one of my friends, and we were like passing ships in the
Right.
night.
Yeah. You don't want to be blindsided.
I don't want to be blindsided. I said, okay, fine. You know what? We're going to go back. I would probably, my favorite kind of friends are the ones we don't have to talk every day. I don't have brain capacity for that. But
I understand totally.
there's very few. There's like maybe three people I talk to every day. That includes my husband and either my sister or my mom. And I have one or two friends that we talk every day, but not even on the phone. It might be like voice note. It's still, but then if they don't hear from me, they know to give me grace. And then this other friend, I'm like, we're not going to talk again for 2 months or so, but that's okay, because I know you're okay.
That's right.
And you know I'm going to be all up in your business if you go quiet again.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
you've been warned, just so you know.
Just so you know, I'm coming for you if you're,
Exactly.
but Seneca, oh my goodness, we could go on. We could go on, and we have, and there's just so much goodness. I feel like we need a part two. For a couple of months from now, what things look like on the other side of the season. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, how can people get connected to you? You talked about access granted. You
Yeah.
went and made the people curious by saying you have millionaires and billionaires coming to your events. How do the people get connected and get to know how to have their access granted as well?
Absolutely. So I'm probably the easiest person to find via social media because I go by my name on everything. It's not, any alias names or anything like that. I go by
Yeah.
Seneca Dunmore, and that's SENDCADUNMORE. So I go by Seneca Dunmore on my LinkedIn, my YouTube, my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So I'm very easy to find. All of my accounts are public, so you don't have to worry about, having to request me or anything like that. But the easiest place to find me is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my number one jam. So I always tell people to get the quickest response, connect with me on LinkedIn. And all the information is out there for Access Granted. You can go to youraccessgranted.com. That's
Mm,
youraccessgranted.com. And all the information about the next conferences and what to expect. You'll see tons of testimonials and clips from the actual event. So you'll know exactly what to expect when you come. And definitely, if you're ever in my city or if I'm ever in your city, please reach out to me. I am always willing to meet you at a nice coffee shop
mm,
and have, great dialogue, great conversation. And if you need help, like just reach out to me. If there's a question that
mm.
I can answer for you, I answer my own DM. So you're welcome to DM me on, Instagram or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer your questions or hop on the phone with you. So yeah, just search for
Yes.
me, Seneca Dunmore, on all my social media platforms. Send me a connection request and I'd be happy to link with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I will leave the links in the show notes so you all can easily access them. And there's one thing that I've gotten to know about Seneca, and that's how I got to know her, is she's super responsive. Don't let that followership fool you into thinking she's not a real person. There's no real
Right.
authentic person behind that. She really means it when she talks about that genuine dialogue, and she loves a good coffee shop, y'all. So
Yes.
she'll also have good recommendations depending on the city as well. So definitely take her up on it. LinkedIn is her jam. She's always dropping gems. If you're just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just gonna hit the follow button and just find out more, find out what's going on, get yourself to the Access Granted conference that's going to be closest
Right.
to you. Sign up so you know when that's happening. And again, I'll share all of that in the show notes. But Seneca, thank you so much for being on the show. I am so, so grateful you were here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been very refreshing. So thank you for this opportunity.
Of course, of course. I'm glad you were here and I'm glad you all tuned in as well. Every single Wednesday, we're here and we're chatting about topics that matter to you, topics that may be new to you, but at the core, they're always going to relate to your career wellness and your faith journey and how that intersects with your personal and professional life. If you want to see Seneca and I chatting it up, see our faces, get to know us. This episode will be on YouTube, and then if you are taking us on the go with you, you can also just hear from us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Listen Notes. I mean, just go type in Wellness with EAC on Google, and all the links will be there. You go to our website, simplyeac.com. There's also going to be resources for you there and archived episodes that you can listen to and pick one that works with you. Subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. And I will see you next Wednesday. And until then, take care and be well, everybody.